Hi, good morning. I'm really happy to be here. I missed the week because we were away in Easter camp, half the community probably. So we couldn't be together for Easter. But God has worked it out that we have Easter again today. It's the Eastern Orthodox Church Easter time. So happy Easter. He has risen and risen indeed. Adju. I shall get my varifocals soon. So my sermon title today is "How Great Is Our God." It probably doesn't relate to my sermon whatsoever, but our God is great. Um, when we look at all the things that we endure in our life, ups and downs, and we consider all that God has done in our lives, we can't but help saying that our God is great indeed, and He has blessed us richly. God didn't have to create, did He? Well, He did because He was seeking love. In the principle, it says God is looking for love, was seeking an object partner to love, therefore He created. So here we are. Who knows what this image is? The pillars of creation, yeah, from the Hubble Space Telescope. It's much longer, the pillars. Yeah, this is just the top view of the image. So God created in the beginning. In the beginning of Genesis, it says, in the beginning there was God, and God was the Word. The Word was God, and He created with the Word. So this is the beginning of our creation. If you think about, if you see this, look at this image and you think what it was like 4 or 5 billion years ago when God was creating and He was looking at the creation and He said it was good. This is what He was seeing. It's really beautiful when you look at all the images that the Hubble Space Telescope has given us. How beautiful the creation is. And yet when God finally created human beings, He said it was very good, much more beautiful than anything that went before. And how God longed for millions of years, for that billions of years, for that moment when He would create us in His image. So St. Paul says in Romans 1:20, a very famous quote, ever since the creation of the world, His invisible nature, namely His eternal power and deity, has been clearly perceived in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. Just to go back to Easter camp last week, who was at Easter camp? Yeah, it was a wonderful experience there. It's called an Easter family camp. It's a family camp, but actually we are all one family, aren't we? We are, the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So we're like one village there. And it doesn't matter what your family looks like, you're welcome to the family camps. So there's another one coming up in the summer. Try not to miss it. So it's hard to explain what goes on in the summer camp, but in the family camps. But it is an expression of the ideal. And the reason I chose this topic anyway was because recently I've been reading in some Hundoke groups, the Wednesday group that we saw in the early morning, Friday and Saturday Hundoke groups. And in all the readings, I get this impression how God really loves us, how God loves me. And this is why I chose this. I was at one of the prayer vigils for Averill Masters this week, and our sister Rosie Biza gave a testimony where she spoke about, she gave a testimony, and she ended by saying she felt that her experience with the Averill Masters was give a little more, And I wanted to make that my topic, but I couldn't find a way to shoehorn it into the principle of creation. Of course, give and take action, isn't it? But I wanted to talk about God's creating us, how he felt like, and what he was expecting when he created. Paul is saying when you look at the creation, you can see um, the eternal power and deity of God. The divine principle says, throughout history, people have anguished over the fundamental questions of human life and the universe without arriving at satisfying answers. This is because no one has understood the root principle by which humanity and the universe were originally created. And then it somewhat contradicts what Paul said. Did you know that? It contradicts Paul. To approach this topic properly, it is not enough to examine resultant reality. So Paul is saying by looking at creation, we can understand about God. And now the divine principle is saying it's not enough to examine resultant reality. The fundamental question is that of the causal reality. So we have to understand about God. Who is God? What is he like? Who is he to us? This is continuing the quotation in the principle of creation. Problems concerning human life and the universe cannot be solved without first understanding the nature of God. So to understand the problems we are experiencing, we need to understand what God is like. So what is God like? This is straight from the first chapter of the divine principle, right? So just as a work of art displays the invisible nature of its maker in a concrete form, everything in the created universe is a substantial manifestation of some quality of the Creator's invisible divine nature. Who knows what this painting is of? It says the Last Supper, right? Who is it by? Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci. And we're going to name them, right? So starting from there, who's that? Matthew. No, Matthew's over there. Anyway, we know this is Jesus, right? This is Jesus. Who is this? These are the 12 disciples, right? So there's no Mary in this picture. Yeah, people see that and think it's Mary, but that's John the Beloved, yeah. John. And who is this character here? Oh, why would you say that? Because he's clutching something there, yeah. And you can see Peter here is clutching a knife as well. Well, it was by Leonardo da Vinci. It says we can see something about his character in what the painting is. Actually, he went out into the town of Milan to look at faces of people and select who he thought will fit a certain character. So he found a Jesus, and he struggled to find a Judas, a criminal type, So it took quite a while for him to finish the painting. So one of the priors in the monastery where he was making this painting on the wall complained, "You're so lazy." So he said to him, "Well, I can't find this criminal type, but if I fail to find one, you will do just as well." So I don't know if this was a picture, painting of the prior. So this is the painting again. They're in groups of three, 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 and three. The surprised, the incredulous, the doubting. You see the guy with the finger is doubting Thomas, yeah? Is the finger with which he, sorry, not you, David, with which he later pokes Jesus, wound. So here you can see the dagger more clearly that Peter is wielding. And a short time later in the Garden of Gethsemane, he threatens to attack some people with a knife. So this is his character, ever since Peter's character. And here you can see with Jesus' hand and Judas' hand seem to be reaching for the same thing. He's reaching for this piece of bread, somehow suggesting that he's the one who's going to betray Jesus. And those on the right, you can see they are really upset that Jesus should announce that one of them will betray him. And this is Jesus' downcast expression. And here you can see clearly Judas. He spilled the salt here. He says spilling the salt is refers to betraying somebody, yeah. And he's clutching the purse with which he will collect his 30 pieces of silver. Anyway, this is Leonardo da Vinci's idea of what the Last Supper should have been, was like. I like the glasses, they are really modern. So these are the people. So from left to right, Bartholomew, James, son of Alphaeus, and Andrew, and then Judas Iscariot, Peter, and John, and then Thomas, James the Greater, and Philip, and then Matthew, Jude, Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot. Whom they are asking, what's going on? Can you explain why he said that? Yeah. So this is another work of art, and this is by, this is in the Sistine Chapel, right, I believe? And this is God represented as a man, but it could equally have been represented as a woman or both. And that's Adam. So that's the creation of Adam. And this painting was by, who was it by? Michelangelo, yeah. So just as a work of art displays the invisible nature of its maker in a concrete form, everything in the created universe is a substantial manifestation of some quality of the Creator's invisible divine nature. As such, each stands in a relationship to God. I don't know for you what that means, but for each of us to be standing in a relationship to God is profound to me. That if each of us here stands in a relationship to God as children of God, then how do we relate with each other? How do we see each other? Can we do anything to harm the other? It's Easter time in Ukraine and Russia, and yet they are coming at each other with fearsome weapons, and there's a lot of injury and death being caused to the people in Ukraine. And they're celebrating Easter together. Easter is a time of recreation, of resurrection, recreation. Basically, a repeat of what God felt like at the creation. And it's a time where humanity, in the situation we are at, we are destroying each other. Not at all what God anticipated at the creation or what Jesus expected with the resurrection to give new life to humanity. Just as a work of art displays, I won't read that again, just as we can come to know the character of an artist through his works, so we can understand the nature of God by observing the diverse things of creation. So the principle is now saying we can look at creation and understand God. It's a bit of a change. But of course, it goes on to explain what we see. This is the hand of God and the hand of Adam. Not quite touching. Let us begin by pointing out the common elements which are found universally throughout the natural world. Every entity possesses dual characteristics of yang and yin, and comes into existence only when these characteristics have formed reciprocal relationships, both within the entity and between it and other entities. So it's not only in our relationship with each other, but our relationship within ourselves, between our mind and body, or heart and body, that we have these characters of yin and yang. Now, I'm going ahead of myself there. It's not internal character, external form. Now we're talking about yin and yang, which is, but it's within the entity we have both yin and yang elements. Yeah. So, yeah, but not to be confused with who we are. So I have a feminine character and I have a masculine character, but I am a man, right? And because I'm a man biologically. And yeah, I don't want to go into that politics there today. Yes, but it's also within with, we relate with each other. So, like, I have my wife, not to pick on you, but again, but as a feminine, we have a relationship, and then we are a couple. We are husband and wife. And it relates also not just to other people, but to all entities. So we may have a masculine character to another entity, which is not human like us, but with a feminine character. So we can relate with a different characteristics in all things because we have this within ourselves. So we can engage in a give and take relationship with the feminine and masculine characters in all entities. So the dual characteristics is manifested within and without. Oh, going back to Genesis, maybe I've mixed them up. Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. She created them. And in Mark 10:9, it says basically the same thing. But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. So we were at the blessing last week, and see that, of course, it's more profound than just a marriage. It's being engrafted into the family of our true parents, engrafted into a new lineage. But seeing the couples together, we really understand the joy that God feels looking at them, because you feel that joy too. They feel that joy. They are excited. And yeah, so the wife will leave the parents and go to the husband, which my wife has done for 30 years, and she's still here. Maybe next year we'll visit Thailand. Your parents, yeah. There is another pair of dual characteristics in a reciprocal relationship, which I briefly mentioned earlier, which are even more fundamental to existence than the dual characteristics of yin and yang, yang and yin. Every entity possesses both an outer form and an inner quality. So what is this outer form and inner quality? So my outer form is what you see, and my inner quality is what you don't see. What motivates me to do what I do. It's how I feel, how I love. So the visible outer form resembles the invisible inner quality. The inner quality, though invisible, possesses a certain structure which is manifested visibly in the particular outer form. The inner quality is called internal nature, and the outer form or shape is called external form. Since internal nature and external form refer to corresponding inner and outer aspects of the same entity, the external form may also be understood as a second internal nature. Therefore, the internal nature and external form together constitute dual characteristics. So this is what we see in the creation. Everything has these dual characteristics of yang and yin and internal and external. And therefore, God also has this form. And it's not just something theoretical that we study and understand, but it's something that impacts on how we live. There's a lot of confusion in the world today about who we are, yang, yin. Our heart, is everything just external? There's confusion with ideologies. Do we just see things externally, or are we more than just the external person that you see? So when we understand the principle, we understand that God, like us, has these dual characteristics, and they impact on how we live our lives. And when we forget to live according to the character that God has bestowed on us, then we start to create confusion in the world, which is what we see. And the time of Easter is a time where God has new hope that the ideals he had at the creation will once more be restored. However, we understood from Jesus' short life that things didn't go according to plan. Jesus was murdered before he could form a family, before he could express this yang and yin outside himself, before he could establish a family. And but with the resurrection of Jesus, we have hope of spiritual resurrection and the return of the Christ, return of the Messiah. Therefore, we are living in this time of great hope. And let not what we see in the world today with all the wars and famine and prejudices that go on take away your hope, take away your feeling, your desire to see God's kingdom of heaven, God's ideal world, the world that we can live in together with each one of us, the way we were originally intended to be, because it is somehow very painful to see the way the world is today. If you see how God created with such high hope for humanity, he went through all the science, right? He did all the science, complicated stuff, in order for us to be here today, just so we can experience his love. And we messed it up right at the moment where God could really feel the pinnacle of his joy. We let him down. But without looking back to see how God intended the world to be, how he intended us to be, it's difficult for us to see our way back. So let us understand who we are in relationship to God. Each one of us is a substantial image of God. And each one of us, as Mother Teresa says, is God. So when we look at each other, we're not just looking at like brothers and sisters who happen to be living some life. Sometimes when you're driving along, you see people on the road and you think, wow, people live in these areas. They have their lives. They're going about their daily business. But these are actually expressions of God trying to find their way, trying to understand who they are. And somehow maybe they're counting on people like us or other religious people who are looking internally to see who we are, to understand who we are, to guide them. So, however, we can reach out to these people, even through cat witnessing. We can, in everywhere we are, we can reach out. We can be that bridge that people have to come back to God, come back to an understanding of who God is, and a desire to connect to God. So that's the principle of creation. Summary. Thank you very much. Please join me in a prayer. Beloved Heavenly Parents, true parents, thank you so much that you continue to guide us, continue to give us hope in spite of the difficult situations that humanity, we find ourselves in at this time. We want to take responsibility for our world. We intend to establish your kingdom of heaven on this earth. Therefore, we will take responsibility to accomplish that by uniting with our true parents and trying to understanding them, understanding your will for us at this time, your deep desire for us to manifest as those children that you longed for, that you intended at the beginning. Isaiah says that you willed it and you will bring it to pass. We want to be like you. We want to decide for our lives, for our families, for our nation, that we will come back to you and we will take steps every day, every moment to find you and to return to you. Heavenly Parent, please guide each one of us. We're going through many challenges, but we know how mighty, how great you are, how you have prepared right from the beginning of time. You cannot let billions of years of preparation go to waste, and therefore you are working through us, through others, to bring in your kingdom of heaven on this earth. So, Heavenly Parent, we want to open ourselves up to be your instruments. Please work through us, imperfect as we are, to usher in your kingdom on this earth. Please be with all our community, those who are ill and recovering from illness, those who are suffering in many different ways. Please comfort them. Let us know that you are with us in everything that we do. It is not sufficient for us to just plead to you to bring about a resolution of our problems. We want to take responsibility. We know you are bringing the victory for us. So we will march forward with a strong determination, never giving up. If we falter, our brothers, our sisters will pick us up and help us along. We will help each other along. Heavenly Parent, we want to thank you that you never gave up on humanity, and we are here today in this moment. And we want to show our gratitude by continuing in our quest to bring your kingdom of heaven on this earth. I want to report and pray this in my name, Adza and Mould of the Central Blessed Family, Arju.